Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell series finale, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Now, I was really excited leading up to this finale. It's been a great series, and I think this is a really great ending. It was bittersweet, of course, because we do, in the end, kind of lose Strange and Norrell. Like, they do end up in some other plane of existence that does technically allow them, at least it allows Jonathan to get in contact with Arabella for a temporary moment in time, but they are off in some unknown area. Like, they're kind of taken up by the tornado and just taken off almost like to another dimension. But it was such a great ending. They get, the gentleman at the end. They defeat the main villain who, has kind of just been going through, was kind of sort of, in between in the very beginning. And then as it went along, it was just worse and worse. He became more and more of a villain because it was like he became infatuated with Arabella, so it was like, well, I'm just taking her. Like, he just did that. That had nothing to do with the deal. He just wanted to basically have her as one of his, dancers in the Lost World. And that was pretty much it. He was just, that's when he was kind of like full on villain. Like, I like her, and I'm just going to take her because I want to. So they were able to finally defeat him, which was definitely great. I thought it was really cool the way that everything played out. We got to see the Raven King, and I think that was probably the biggest surprise for me, is that they summoned the Raven King, and he was still only in it for maybe a minute of the entire episode. Like, I thought they summoned the Raven King, and he's gonna be in the series, and that's how this is gonna work. And it was like, nope, he came in, he looked at them, he vanished, he went to where Childermass was, and which was a really funny scene to me. Like, when he showed up and Childermass saw him, the first thing he says is like, "This is my body," which I thought was a really weird sentence to say. Just like I own this, dead corpse right here, so back off. But he gets frozen, and the Raven King rewrites the book, basically his book, and I thought that was really cool. And he brings the guy back to life, and he lets Childermass go and stuff. So there's like a whole new book of the Raven King that he came back. He brought his book back, his living book back to life after he rewrote it, and then he was like, boom, I'm gone. Like, he just vanished after that, and it was like nothing. And I was like, that was not at all what I was expecting. I thought the entire series, he's going to be the main villain by the end. He's going to be what they have to confront, and he's going to be the reason that they're both killed, or that that they failed. That's their destiny. I thought they were going to go up against the Raven King and his inevitable return, and his inevitable return was actually brought about because of them working together, which was really cool. I was really glad to see that by the end they do actually work together, and despite all the differences that they've had, obviously, throughout the entire series, it all came down to, Jonathan wanted to save his wife, and, Norrell was like, I'm going to help you do that because that's something that's actually important. I'm going to help you do that. And also, it's kind of my fault that all of this stuff happened, so multiple reasons for him deciding to actually help out and fight against the gentleman by the end of the series. But it was definitely great, and it was like, he gave him, I guess I can't say a speech, but Norrell was like, we're going to die from this, but you'll die sooner because you've been basically under the darkness for so long. And if that does happen and I'm able to survive, then I'll do everything I can to save Arabella. So I thought that was really cool, and they do work together, and we get to see Norrell, like, in the, finally in the very end, we get to see him, like, when he was going through and the people were dancing, and he tries to sort of dance through him. It was like a really quick scene. It wasn't as long as I would have liked to have seen because it would have been really funny. But, he sort of starts fake dancing in between them to kind of blend in, which I really love to see that. And when he yells to Steven after he gets the magic, and the gentleman, like, looks at him, he, like, ducks down because he's, really freaked out, and I just loved it. It was cool to see that happen for his character, and, he's freaked out pretty much this entire episode, but he went through with it, and it was really cool to see him do that. And I did love what Jonathan told him about when he was at Waterloo. He was like, I had the same thing happen to me when I was, in the battle, because it would either happen because I was really scared, or because I was about to do really great magic, and sometimes it's one and the same. So I love, just that little line that he gave him, and it's like, we have to do this, and we just have to make it work. It's going to be something grand. We might be scared, but it's still about to be something amazing. So I definitely love that line. I did, like I said, love getting to see them work together. After the Raven King did vanish on them and just, poof, he disappears, they talk about the nameless slave and stuff, who we all know as Steven. And, they didn't know that. And I was really waiting to see. I was very curious, like, what's going to happen when he shows up? Because, they just know him as, the nameless slave. And that's it. It's like, okay, well, let's summon him. And they thought they were actually summoning the Raven King again. And then Steven shows up, which was at the most fortunate time, because the gentleman, I thought that was going to be the extent until Steven got summoned. But, he was kind of going crazy. He's like closing people's mouths, taking people's ears off, and having them fly away. The way he made the guy blind was actually pretty intense, because it seemed like it wasn't just like, oh, he turned him blind. Because they did like a sound effect with it. It honestly seemed like he rolled his eyes inside of his head, and they like just tore or something, and they just rolled upwards, and he couldn't see anymore. So that was kind of gross. It seemed really intense the way he'd done it. And of course, he gave Steven the black sword to kill him. And then, fortunately, he gets taken out by the ravens. And once he's summoned, it was just like that whole moment. I think once Steven was actually summoned in front of them, and it's like, that's not the Raven King, and he was shot. That was like maybe 5 to 8 minutes of just like, I don't know what's about to happen anymore, because he gets shot. We have the guy, I can't even think of the guy's name. He was just like killing people left and right in this episode, though. It was crazy. He killed Benjamin early on in the episode, which was pretty intense and very surprising and dark for his character, but it showed just, and it was obvious that was how he was even from the very beginning. And it seemed like him and Ben, like, they were working together, and it was like, well, you have these debts and you're nothing to me. And he turns him in, and then he's just trying to protect himself. And they actually gave him a line in this episode where it's like, do you think I'll let you destroy Norrell? And basically, in a sense, destroy me. So we knew that that's what he was doing, but it was actually cool to have him officially acknowledge that, which he'd only do to, obviously someone he was about to just kill. But, he does that. He cuts Childermass, like, sort of in the middle of the episode. And then he shoots Steven, and I have to assume he didn't know what the heck was going on. It's just like, villain, and he just shoots him, and he was about to shoot Jonathan. And, the gentleman shows up behind him, and he turns around, and when the gun started to fall apart, at first I thought it was just like, oh, it was just falling, like the pieces of metal were just basically separating, and then I could obviously tell it was like basically a ceramic gun it turned into. And then he was turned into just a giant piece of just nothingness. It was just shattered instantaneously. And the gentleman even walks over like where his eye is and just crushes it. I thought that was insane. Like, Steven gets shot. Fortunately, he does come back because of all the magic. And then, the gentleman just turns him into like just pieces of ceramic glass, all over the place, or ceramic, because those two separate things. But that was a really crazy scene. And then, of course, the gentleman, being so incredibly angry with the two of them after everything that happened, is like, Steven wouldn't have been here to be shot if it weren't for the two of you. I also wouldn't have lost Lady Pole if it weren't for, Jonathan getting the finger to Childermass, and all this other stuff. And then it's like, Norrell starting that was actually good for the gentleman, but it's also like, well, you turned on me in the end, so now I gotta try to kill you both. And it was just a great little moment. Like, they go in, they're able to defeat him, and, Steven turns around when Norrell is about to get taken down. So that was a really cool scene. And it's just like, he stops him, and he's like, I realize now that you're the king that I'm supposed to kill. And he has him, sucked up into the tree. And it was just a cool scene. And, I kind of wish we did get to see some more with him. Like, he's the king, I guess, of the magic realm at this point. But we didn't really get to see sort of any, like, epilogue as far as his character, which I thought was kind of unfortunate. But there would probably be a bit too much to explain with his epilogue and what he's going to be doing now. But we got to see what everyone else does after this. We got to see Lady Pole and her husband, and she decides that she's going to go and help her friends and kind of do what she wants to do, because she doesn't want to be in a sort of a state of servitude. So I thought that was kind of cool. Her husband was kind of just like, oh, well, I'm just alone with no job as well because he resigned in this episode. So it's just like, oh, I've got no servant who I thought was a traitor. He's gone. My wife is gone. My job is gone. He's just alone. Of course, we got to see Arabella, and she goes to Strange's house in Venice, and that's where she gets to see him. So that was a nice scene, and he just has the explanation where he doesn't exactly know where he is or if he's anywhere, as he puts it. And that was a nice little moment. It was sad, but like I said, it was fairly bittersweet, and I thought it was just well done. So that was a nice little moment for her character. And then we get the final scene of the series with Childermass and the new living book of the Raven King. And he's still the same guy. He goes in, he's like eating something. I don't know what. He's always just eating something. It's just like, and he's just moving around doing the same sort of weird mannerisms. But now they have this new book from the Raven King, which has a new destiny set out for possibly Jonathan and Norrell, and probably the rest of English magic and magic as a whole across the world. So I love the way that they ended the series where Childermass goes back to the initial group from the first episode and says that your contract to give up being magicians is now void, and if you would like to become magicians again for whatever good it'll do, you're allowed to do that now. But I would hope that we can all work together and decipher the Raven King's new book. So I love the way that they ended the series. I thought it was well done. I liked the fact that Childermass was the one who found the book, and he goes to the tree where he woke up in the episode where he was shot when he almost died. I feel like they may have skipped over that. I feel like in the books they probably touched on that a little more, but I do wish they had like one little line where he, when he gets to the place where he's like, this is where I woke up, when I almost died. This is the tree that I saw. And I would have loved if they kind of touched on that, but I feel like they didn't do that, and it was just like he found the ravine, and obviously he knew that it was the ravine because he was just like, Stephen was just like in a ravine, and he was like, I know where. He just instantly knew where it was, but they didn't put like a specific line in there, and I don't know if that was for time in the episode or whatever, but I kind of wish there was a specific line, unless I did miss it, but I'm pretty sure Stephen was just like in a ravine, and he kind of just instantly knew where to go, but there wasn't like any real look of emotion on his face, like I know where it is. It was just like, all right, and he took off because he knew where to go because of, I guess it wasn't a dream, or whatever you would really call it when he almost died, and where he woke up. But I love this ending episode. It was really cool. The stuff with the gentleman kind of doing the spells on people and closing their lips. Of course, what he did when he turned the guy and basically shattered him. That was probably my favorite move from him in this episode because he reached his limit. Like, he lost, Lady Pole, and it was like, you took her from me, and then Steven's locked up and stuff, and it's like, all this crap is happening, and they're trying to stop me, and all this stupid crap is going down. I have to take them out. And now I gotta deal with Lady Pole. I have to kill her husband. I gotta take these two guys down. And so it was really cool to see that take place, and that was just really fun. And of course, like I said, Jonathan and Norrell actually working together by the end and really becoming friends, and especially at the very end, when they were hit with the spell, and Jonathan was like fully weak, and he like just couldn't really move anymore, and Norrell had to kind of comfort him, and he actually called him Jonathan in the end, and he's like, my friend, and he said, just sleep, like, don't be afraid, because I'm not, and he just accepted things as they came, and like the scene when he had to give up his books was definitely really funny. I love that. He was like, about half from, 2/3 of them and stuff. So that was a funny little scene. But then in the end, I definitely enjoyed that. Like I said, the only little thing was like, I wish that Childermass did actually have a line where he kind of said something specific about where he was in the ravine and stuff. Like, this is, where I woke up, or, maybe if they had the Raven King do it, or, if something happened to kind of do it in dialogue, because it was just so fast, it wasn't really even, expression-wise, there still really wasn't much from Childermass, like, oh, this is that place I woke up when I almost died. It was just like, he was there, and he, kind of got down from a tree, which, that would kind of take precedence over some exposition, like, oh, this is where I was when I was shot. So it does make sense that he wouldn't just stop and say that in front of a dead body on a tree. But I do kind of wish there was some actual nod to it. I would have loved that. And the other thing, and this was the only thing that actually bothered me in this whole episode, was when Childermass went to stop them from waking up Lady Pole by doing the spell, and I think it was just a bad editing choice. It was like I think it was kind of meant to be sort of like typical TV where it's like, oh, they're about to do the spell and he's running up the house and he goes in and it's like, stop, but it's too late. But instead of that, the way they cut it was like he's putting he's putting her pinky back onto her hand. Childermass comes in, he's like, stop. The guy looks up, and then they go back to the scene with him moving the finger, and it was like a full 2 second scene. And it's like, he's just moving the finger slowly, and it's like, that was just really, I think that was just bad editing, in my opinion, because he got up there in time, and they even edited it right, where it was like, he's doing it, Childermass says, stop, he looks up and stops, and then it's just like, oh, and he just keeps moving his finger. And I guess you could say it was the spell itself, but if that were the case, then they should have done it where he let the finger go and the spell was done, so it still moved by on its own. But it looked like he just still pushed her finger right to her hand, and she woke up, and it was like, I wish they just edited that a little bit differently. But that was the only real thing that actually bothered me, because it's like, I know that she's gonna wake up and stuff, but it was just like the way they did it just seemed really weird. The editing for that seemed a bit off to me, but I still love the episode. Of course, I love the series. I guess I didn't mention this when I first started. Obviously, you guys can tell the difference, but I'm doing this review at 60 frames per second instead of 30 because I like to do that for like series finales because it's I have no more episodes, sadly. So that's why it looks a bit different than what it normally does for the other reviews. Hopefully this doesn't take forever to upload because obviously I'm already days behind because I wasn't home over the weekend to actually watch the episode. But I really love this series, and I think I'm going to actually pick up the book so that I can get more detail on these characters and get more of their experiences and stuff. And when I was looking up the series, I think it was around episode 2 or 3, I found out that there is supposed to be another series. I don't know if it's being written right now or if it's already out, but it is supposed to focus on the rest of the characters like Childermass and everything that's going on sort of in those end scenes and what happens to these characters after Jonathan and Norrell kind of just, vanish and take magic with them. So, if that does come out sometime soon, I'll probably end up picking up both series and kind of enjoying them because I really love this series. I think like I said, I tried to convince my girlfriend to watch it. I don't know if she'll watch the show, but she loves to read, really good books, so I'm trying to push her to get that as well. But I'm definitely I'll pick up this series because I love the show, and I can only imagine how good the book's going to be because this one just, I don't know, it was one of those shows, like a lot of things, movies and shows based off of movies, it's like, I liked it, but that's good enough. And for this one, it kind of just sucked me in, and I guess because it's a mini series, it makes me want to get the book even more because it's so much kind of, in a tight, tiny little package with nearly a handful of episodes, like just over a handful of episodes. So I'm definitely excited to get my hands on the book at some point and read through the full, series and get to know these characters even better. But I love the show. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought about this finale, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, I want to know what, some of your favorite moments from the entire series are. Like, some of your high points, favorite moments from any of the characters. I know one for me that is definitely going to stand out, of course, is when Jonathan actually did kill that soldier. Because in the trailer, it was probably the best trailer they've had for any of the episodes because it was just like he's about to get killed and they have like the slow motion on his face and he's freaking out and he's covered in mud and he just digs his hand into the mud and this giant hand comes up and grabs the guy. And I didn't know from the trailer that he'd actually kill him because the way they cut it, I thought that was someone from the English army coming at him because it was like something about him being charged for killing someone else, or maybe I just heard it wrong. So I didn't know that he'd actually killed that person, but when I saw that episode, and it was just like a really powerful scene, like it was one of my favorites because not only was it a really amazing spell, which of course that's kind of Jonathan throughout the series, even in this episode he had like the fire spells Did kind of remind me, thinking about it now, it makes me think of Harry Potter. But when I was watching it, I didn't think of that at all. But I just thought that, like, oh, that was definitely in one of the movies where that happened for sure. Um, but that was probably one of my favorite moments because it was, of course, a huge moment for his character. Pretty much every time he did a huge spell, it was a big deal. Like when he first did the horses, it was like, oh, this is the first real big display of magic, which was in the initial trailer before the show even premiered. And I loved that for sure. And it was like, oh, well, we like this guy more than that guy. And that was when that first started. And then when he brought the soldiers back, that was a pretty big deal. And he couldn't get rid of them and stuff. And so that was cool. But when he actually had to kill someone himself, it was a great show of magic. And it was just a really dramatic moment. Like people around him were all dying. You know, he'd stop the building from being set on fire. And then they break in and it's just disaster. People dying all over the place, and he just had to do what he had to do, and so he killed someone, and it just changed him as a character. So that's probably my favorite moment because it was a great display of magic, but it was also a huge changing point for this character who knew he had this power but never wanted to use it in that way. So that's definitely one of my favorite moments. There's a ton of others too, a ton of really funny moments for sure, but I love the series overall. Of course, like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.